War Thunder's next update is adding the Su-30, J-11B, and F-18 Hornet, which pretty much every channel has covered at this point, but I wanted to cover a couple of niche additions, which are sensor fusion and NCTR, or non-cooperative target recognition. I want to start with sensor fusion, and it looks like the first example of sensor fusion we're getting in War Thunder is between the RWR and missile approach warning system. Keep in mind this is only a basic first look, and I haven't fully figured out all of the system's quirks yet. As of recording, the German Typhoon is the only plane that has it, and as you'll see it can be a bit janky at times, so I'm not convinced it's working properly yet. But it is the first dev server, so expect changes, and hopefully Gaijin will do a devlog on it. I have been working on an in-depth video about RWR mechanics for the past couple weeks, but I wanted to briefly cover this feature because I think it is interesting. So in a nutshell, what this change is doing is it's making the jet smarter about how it automatically dispenses countermeasures when the missile warning goes off. On the live server, if you have countermeasure slaving to MAW turned on and the missile warning system picks up a launch, it will automatically start dispensing both types of countermeasures super aggressively. But on the Typhoon on the dev server, it's a little bit different. You still need to have countermeasure slaving enabled in order for it to work, just as before, except now instead of having just one dispense program, the system has 4 and it'll try to pick the right one for the given situation. This feature comes with a few changes to the Typhoon's Praetorian DAS system. The MAWS is now modeled as an active system, which in real life uses little pulse Doppler radar antennas to detect and range incoming weapons. In the game, this now means that the threat range is overlaid onto the RWR face instead of just using the outer ring that was previously exclusive to MAWS. The RWR and MAWS do not use the same range scale, even though their information is overlaid onto the same display. The MAWS range scale starts at 100 meters on the inner ring and goes to 10 kilometers on the outermost ring. The RWR range scale is the same as it was before, which starts at 9.25 kilometers on the inner ring and goes to 74 kilometers on the outer RWR ring. The Typhoon's RWR got some general updates to its threat table, such as being able to identify J-10 and the Pantsir's track radar, but more importantly, its various launch warning groups got a threat flag that corresponds to what type of threat the launch is, such as SAC loss, active radar homing, or SAR. There's also a general threat flag for a radar tracking you, and going back to the missile warning system, it has its own threat flag as well. By comparing what threat flags are present from both the MAW and the RWR, the system tries to run the countermeasure dispense program it thinks is right for the given situation. In practice, I found it works well sometimes and not so well other times. Let's start with the cases where it works well. If the missile warning system picks up an incoming missile with no accompanying warning from the RWR, it assumes it's an IR missile and runs the flare-only program. I tested this against Fox 2 IR missiles as well as surface-launched IR manpads, and it worked consistently how I would expect. I also tried it against the Stormer, which fires a beam-riding missile with no RWR warning, and it also treated that as an IR missile, which I expected. I found that the chaff-only program would run pretty consistently for active radar missile launches. It would also dispense chaff for an incoming missile from a Florakrad and the Pantsir, but only if they were using their track radar. For launches from those systems using IRST, I found it to be inconsistent and seemingly random in what it would dispense and when. Apart from the seemingly random flaring, it does seem to me like it's working pretty well in these situations. And then against incoming SAR missiles, I tried it against a few different planes and it often just outright ignored the incoming missile or it dispensed flares. So overall, I do think it's cool they're starting to work on sensor fusion, and I think they're cooking here, but it needs more time in the oven for sure. As it is right now, I still think it's just better to use countermeasures manually 95% of the time, but assuming they can make improvements to the system and cut down on the number of false alarms and make it dispense the correct countermeasure at the correct time all the time, I think we'll see people start to use it a lot more. The other neat sensor feature coming in the next update is NCTR, or non-cooperative target recognition, which is currently only found on the in-cockpit radar display of the Su-30. From what I understand, NCTR basically uses the aircraft's own radar to look at the return signature of the fan blades, as well as probably some other information about the RCS, and compares that to a database to identify the type of plane in question. In the Su-30 and War Thunder, the bottom right of the in-cockpit TWS radar display shows the list of contacts with a number next to each one, and you just have to match the number to the number of the corresponding contact on the radar scope to see what kind of plane it is. It also works in single target track, where of course there's only one aircraft name. The game is pulling the name you see on the display from the to name in the localization, which is the name you see on the marker at more than 1200 meters distance, and it means the system works for literally any aircraft in the game, as opposed to, for example, how the RWR works, where it identifies threats based on a database that Gaijin sets manually. This feature is probably going to be pretty useful in Sim or in the late game. I haven't seen anything about if or when it's coming to Western jets in the game, and I'm not sure if it should be this precise or work in TWS or from all aspect, but I wouldn't expect to see any changes, and I'm assuming it's just going to hit the live server as it is. That's about it for the stuff I wanted to cover. I know this video is kind of an obscure topic, but if you find this kind of stuff interesting, consider dropping a like. I do want to apologize for the lack of videos recently. I've been working a full-time job and running into a lot of problems with the projects I want to make, so it's been really frustrating for me on a personal level. I do genuinely want to get videos out, but I also don't want to upload for the sake of uploading, if that makes sense. As always, come hang out on Discord, and thank you so much for watching.